Hello, it's me again, Leia. Today we will have our third lesson, which is context and contextualization. Let me ask you, what is context and what is contextualization? Context means the scene which surrounds the communication situation, and contextualization means creating a communication situation that is so clear in the student's mind that he or she knows exactly what is said in that situation, just not in English. It is a picture that the learner can see him or himself in, or imagine her or himself being part of. For example, look at this picture. What can you see? It's a picture of two people, right? Where do you think these people are? They are in a shoe store. What do you think they are talking about? Can you guess? As you notice, even in your own language, you can guess what these two people might be talking about. How do you know that? That is because of the setting where these two people are. When we are at the shoe store, of course, we talk about buying shoes and probably asking for different sizes or colors from the sales lady and the like. That is what we mean by context. We set a scene or background in the mind of our students so they will be able to understand how to use the language presented to them. Therefore, context should be personalized, asking questions which allow students to express their interest to the teacher and each other. Questions such as, what sports do you like? What do you do after school? Where did you go last weekend? Who is your favorite actor? Context should also be localized. Lesson materials used should have a local place, names, landmarks, modes of transport, foods, and others. This does not mean that you shouldn't introduce new things, but to do so, it should be with caution under the conditions that the new things are relevant to the students' lives. You should start where the students are and bring them to new things. For example, a Japanese teacher was teaching a lesson to Filipino students using activities done during winter as a context. Because the teacher wanted to impart the knowledge about own culture and interests, the problem is, in the Philippines, there is no winter. So students are not familiar with skiing, snowboarding, and etc. So, it is hard for the students to imagine the winter activities and the scenery for each. In that lesson, the teacher should have localized the context. So instead of using winter activities as a context, it should have been summer activities, since the Philippines is a tropical country. That is an example of localization. And it is not meant to say that there is never a time to teach about one's own culture and interests. However, start where the students are and move slowly into new areas as indicated by the learner's interests. In addition, contexts need to be realistic, natural, authentic, so students can use it outside the classroom. Be familiar and interesting so students enjoy the class. And be surrounded by easy language. Like for example, eat, see, go. Alright. Also, be performed using the same language function throughout. Allow for positive question and negative forms of the language taught. Be generative. Allow for several examples of the same form and function within context. Now, how do we set the context in our lesson? Context can be established in a number of ways. One way of setting context is through senses. The idea is to hit as many senses as you can. Try to think of things that you can smell, things that you can feel. Use emotions. Use emotional engagement of the learner. Try to touch as many things as you can. Another way to set context is through imaging. It is particularly powerful way to do it. Paint as much picture as you can in the minds of your students. For example, you are at a bus station. What sound do you think would help establish the context of bus station? Let's listen to this sound. What did you imagine when you hear the sound? You were probably imagining the door of the bus that is closing or opening. Or you are imagining the bus is moving, right? When you hear this sound, it is very easy to know that it is in the bus station. Another one. What sound do you hear from a restaurant? Let's listen to the sound. When you hear this sound, what did you imagine? You are probably imagining a lot of people are eating using their fork and knife, and there are waiters around moving. And there's a lot of noise from the restaurant. So when you hear this sound, it is very easy to know that you are in a restaurant. Context can be set with sounds, with smell, with pictures, with realia, with mind, or with short narratives. Any way is possible. Setting a context does not take too much time if you get the right thing. It actually takes very little time to set it. In summary, whenever we use language, whether we are speaking, listening, reading, or writing, we do it in some kind of context. The situation we are in, the tone we want to express, and the ways that others respond to us all affect the nature of the language choices that we make. Language without context lacks important reference points for meaning. And so, it is simply not as effective in communicating what we want to say. This is something that we must bear in mind as teachers, and something that our learners can use to their advantage in their study and use of English. From a teaching perspective, the value of a strong context cannot be underestimated when presenting new language to students. Contextualizing early on in a lesson through the use of situations, topics, images, and talking points creates a frame of reference for students to refer when any new content comes at them. Studies in neurolinguistics shows that setting a context effectively activates areas of the brain which relates to learners' experience in relevant areas, known as schema. If activated before new language is presented, a learner's schemata does valuable preparation work, acting as a landing pad for new language and allowing it to join other related forms in both short and long-term memory. As a result, when the target language is taken in, it is more likely to be remembered and used. As teachers, we should know how to visualize our lessons. Let's give it a try. I want you to imagine and draw the 4 contexts. The first one is, I am late. The second context is lucky. The third context is my favorite food. And the fourth context is I have a headache. So you can send your drawings later on. What did you draw? Let us take a look at these 4 pictures and let's guess the 4 contexts. Let's start with context number 1, which is I am late. Let's try. Is this the first picture? Is it the second picture? What about the third picture? That's right. It's the third picture. So, as you can see, there are 2 clocks. The first clock says 8:30. And it has a check mark on the side. The second clock, however, says 9 o'clock. And it has an X mark on the side. And the person here looks sad. So, this picture means that this person is late. So the correct answer for this picture, or the context for this picture, is I am late. What did you draw? Do we have the same drawing? That's good. You did great. Now let's go to the second context. I have a headache. Is it the first picture? Is it the second picture? Or the third picture? It's the second picture. There is a hammer on the side. And this picture here depicts that he is in pain because of this hammer. And it is near his head. So which means that this person has a headache. So the context for this picture again is I have a headache. What did you draw? Is it the same with this one? You're doing good. Now let's go to our third context. Lucky. Is it the first picture? Is it the second picture? It's the second picture. Now let's take a look at this picture. There are three images. The first one is a machine, and it says jackpot with three sevens, 777, which means lucky. And there is a clover. And the last picture is a lucky cat. So for other places or countries, you have a different depiction of lucky. So in other countries, there are different depictions of lucky. So here in the Philippines, this is our depiction of lucky. So you can change it depending on what country you're from. And now, let's go to the last context, which is my favorite food. So we only have one picture left. Let's take a look at this picture. So this boy here is imagining many different types of food. Like for example, a donut, French fries, pizza, a candy, and a chicken. But this chicken here has a heart shape on it. So it only means that this boy loves, or his favorite food is chicken. So again, for this context, it's my favorite food. What did you draw? Is it the same with this one? That's good. Now, as teachers, it is very important for us to imagine or visualize our context so that it will be easy for our students to understand our lessons. Your pictures can be as simple as these. It doesn't need to be very beautiful, as long as it is easy for your students to understand your lessons. Thank you.